Oh,
Hi, Graham.
hi. Chum. Um,
We are playing around there. Kitty.
Having fun.
Okay, good, yeah. So what happened to that gal? She wasn't home?
which girl?
She called somebody, Steffi called somebody else.
She didn't come yet.
Oh.
Isn't she supposed to come tomorrow?
You all right,
Yes.
Steffi?
Yeah, she lives in West Pond. Her friend lives in West Pond.
Blue batteries
Okay, here we
Okay.
are. We are recording right now.
now.
Today's date is what? It's
Today, it's St. Patrick's
St.
Day.
Patrick's Day.
March the 17th.
And you're not wearing any green at all.
No, I didn't. I forgot.
A
Then I
little,
got
a little
dressed.
eyeshadow, green eyeshadow, so you're all
I have
set.
put a little green eyeshadow
Yeah. Okay, why don't you state your name and where you were born, and I'm going to have you tell me a little bit about your childhood, what it was like to grow up in Germany.
on. All right. My name in Germany my maiden name was Susi Weil. That was, we lived in a small town in Germany. This was called Speyer am Rhein, a quite famous city for the famous cathedral, and which is called the Dome. And we had a very happy childhood. I went by bicycle wherever I went, to the Rhine swimming, and everything was very nice until the year 1933, when Hitler got into power.
How old were you in 33?
January 1st, 1933, and I was just about, I got out, our school system is a little different. I got just out of high school, and I was supposed to get into junior college. And I started the first term of junior college, which was in September. And when Hitler got into power, January the 1st, I was thrown out because I was a Jew.
How did they know you were a Jew?
Well, everybody, first of all, when you registered in school or wherever you registered, they ask you your religion or your nation, whatever it is, and you had to put down whether you're Jewish or Catholic or Protestant. So it was all over registered. And my father and our family was very known in the town. He was quite a very well-to-do hop merchant, which is a very unusual profession. It's you deliver all the hops to the different breweries, and they make beer from it. So, but that had nothing really to do, and I was very shocked. There was always an awful lot of anti-Semitism, but we conformed to that without any special problems. So as soon Hitler got into power, my father said, who had been from World War I, and he had an iron cross, he says, oh, this is not going to happen in Germany, anybody discriminating against the Jews. I won't believe that. It's not going to happen. We're going to leave Germany and we go to Belgium, because his business was quite popular in Belgium. We had a lot of customers there. So without a lot to do, we moved after 2 months. It was in March 1933. We tried to move to Brussels. But unfortunately, it was very difficult to get special papers. So first we had to go to Saarbrücken, which is the Saargebiet with all the coal. And from there we finally got papers, and we went to Brussels, where we figured within a year or so, the situation will change and Hitler will be down again. It won't be so serious. Unfortunately, within a few months, in our hometown and on the main street, there were mostly Jewish stores, shoe stores and all kinds of liquor stores, and every one of the stores was closed up and they broke their windows after about 3 months and said Jews cannot be there anymore. Now the same thing happened to me. I couldn't stay in school. I had to stop my schooling. Anyway, we lived in Brussels till the year 1935, which was 2 years, and I learned French, and I went to a convent where they taught me more French. And by 1935, we didn't get any permits to stay anymore because there was already war in the question. They didn't trust Hitler, and he was afraid he's going to start a war again with France and Belgium. And in those countries, if you are a foreigner, you cannot get any permit to stay, you cannot get any permit to work. So, unfortunately, in the beginning of 1935, we had to go back to Germany. And that was a terrible thing because our house, that we had about 24 rooms with a very big factory for the hops with my father, it had all been taken by Hitler already within 2 years. And fortunately, the maid that we had for 20 years that had raised us, she had a 2-room apartment in our house in the attic. And she took in my parents, my mother, Betty, and my father, Edward. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go to some family in Frankfurt. Frankfurt it's a mine. And they gave me a job there. I was working for to make some knitted clothes. I was very good in giving knitting instructions and to sew knitting things, so I had a job, and it happened to be a Jewish owner of the factory, and I worked there for a little while, and I was very acquainted with one of the physicians in Frankfurt, a Dr. Schoenfeld, and they had a wonderful affidavit to go to the United States. So they were very anxious to have me come with them, and they adopted me, and within a month, luckily, I got my papers from Stuttgart. That was where the American consulate was, and I got out, fortunately, June the 20th, 1936, and I came to the United States.
Wasn't it difficult leaving everyone behind, leaving your mother and your father?
Well, sure, it was very difficult. I went back to see my parents. My mother was a very sick woman. She was a very bad diabetic, and she couldn't do, and luckily we had this maid that took care of her. And my father, he figured, oh, it's not gonna last. He was very much of an optimist, that Hitler is not gonna last, and they're gonna give us back our property. Well, fortunately, I came to the States, and I was the stronghold of everything, because I was only here less than a year, and I was lucky enough to find a wonderful man, Ehrenpreis, and I got married, and fortunately he was an American citizen, and when you marry an American citizen, you have some privileges for your people to come to the United States. So also his cousins were in the State Department in Washington, and my father in the meantime had been sent to a concentration camp. It was really a DP camp in Gurs, which is the south of France. And I was very anxious to get my father out of there, because by then we knew very well that they're going to be shipped all over to Poland or any terrible concentration camp, and they're going to be killed. We knew here that those camps are going to be murder. They wouldn't admit it, but we knew in the United States. So I went to Washington, and fortunately one of the relatives in the State Department gave me immediately papers, and my father got on a preferred quota. And luckily, my husband's sister, Amalia Garen, was in Marseille. She also had been run away from Paris. And I sent her all the papers, and she went to Gurs, and she walked my father out of the DP camp. Nobody knew, she just walked them out, and that's the way he got in 1940 about one of the last boats that left Marseille to the United States. But that was a long trip. He first was interned in Casablanca. He got out of France, and the first internment was in Casablanca because the war was already on. He got from Casablanca, he finally got another ship that took him to Martinique. Oh no, Saint Martin, not Martinique, Saint Martin. And there he was interned again. And after about 3 months, he finally arrived in the United States, and I picked him up at the New York harbor when the boat came in, and boy, he was just the most wonderful man. He had a big safari hat and a rucksack, and he spoke so many languages. He was fluent in French, German, English, Dutch, and he says, you see, all those people, they wouldn't have survived without me, because I really helped them in every respect. So he got off, and he was very, very happy to be in the United States. He was a very happy person. He never felt real angry about what has happened. We didn't realize actually what has happened. And as soon as he came to the United States, he stayed with me. I had a very nice apartment on Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn. And he stayed for a while, and then he got his own apartment, and he remarried a lovely woman. I forgot to tell you that my mother fortunately died before Hitler would have killed her, because she was so sick, and she died of the diabetes. So at least she wasn't sent to one of those terrible camps and killed. So then, after I was the only one in the United States, and my sister Lilo fortunately got to Holland, which you hear of a different tape that she made, and luckily I got papers for them through my husband, who was well-to-do. He had a very nice business, and we were able to make affidavit papers, and I got them to the United States. My brother Kurt, who had run away to Spain because my father's brother, Max Weil, was in Barcelona. And he went to Barcelona, hopefully that the war the situation will get better, but it didn't. So also he got caught in the Civil War in Spain. And then, luckily, also because I was in the United States, I was the savior of the entire family. I got him affidavit papers. I got for him, and he got to the United States. It was also in 1940 or 41. And I don't know what else I really can tell you. Once my life started very good in the United States, my husband had a very good business in Wall Street. He was one of the first efficiency experts in Wall Street. And I started working with him, helped him, and slowly we had 3 children, Brent, Betty and David. But the oldest was Brent. He was born in 1939. And we really didn't want any more children because the war was on. So Betty was only born in 1947, and David was born in 1949. But we had a very good life, and things went very good, except I felt terrible about so many relatives that were left in Europe, and Rudy was a wonderful person. He helped everybody. He brought about 50 people. Some of them we didn't even know. We brought to the United States to get out. As soon they were able, we got letters from, because he originally, Rudy, came from Poland. He was from near Vienna, a town called Jarabno. But he lived in Vienna, and he got to the United States in 1923, and there were many of his relatives that tried to come to the United States, including Amalia, who was a half-sister to Rudy and Bernard. You see, Rudy had a brother, Bernard, and he was a very known physician in Brooklyn at the Kings County Hospital. And Amalia, that's the same one I mentioned before that walked my father out of the DB camp in Gurs in the south of France. She had been studying at the Institut Curie to become also a radiologist, and she wanted to, and that's when she got caught in the war, because she was a brilliant young lady who had he was born in Poland and had studied in Italy to get her doctor degree, and from there she went to Paris to finish her education with the Institut Curie, because that was just about the most famous place if you come. And then she wanted to come to join her brothers in the United States.
You mean you haven't stopped?
No.
Boy, how could you do all that?
I was telling the story.
Telling the story.
That's the
How can you
story
remember all that?
of my, well, this is easy
I
to
had a history
remember.
like that, I'd forget about it.
No, that's very easy. That's all good stories. It's very good. It was nothing real hard about it. And but unfortunately, Amalia could never get out until the year 1954. She came finally from France with her husband, Emil, and 2 children, Lily and, what is his name? Boy, am I terrible. John. Because in French it's called Jean, but here in the United States it's John. And they lived in Brooklyn, and we were very happy together.
Good. Excellent.
Now,
There are a couple questions I just want to ask you. Tell me what it was like when you arrived in America. You're a young woman, you speak German, you're Jewish. Tell me, was it difficult?
no, it was very exciting. First of all, the fact that I spoke French was very favorable. I was in the garment industry, you know, I was very talented in knitting and making clothes. I had learned how to design clothes and make clothes. So I immediately got a very good job on Madison Avenue in as a knitting instructor and designing of clothes. And then in the summer, the same person who had the store on Madison Avenue had a store in Atlantic Beach, which is near Far Rockaway, in a very famous place, which called, in Atlantic Beach. And it was a beach shop, and I was a model for the bathing suits. So we were having wonderful business because I was there, and I had a wonderful time that summer. And the following summer, and I went back to New York, and that's when I got married. I only was here about 8 months before I got married. And I was very happy. It wasn't difficult. if you knew languages and you were in the garment industry and you looked well, you could get any kinds of jobs. It was hard to get jobs. My first job, I worked in 2 stores to be a model and be a fitter and alteration hand. First on 59th Street and Lexington Avenue, and then the same owner owned a store on 2nd Avenue, and I worked from 10 in the morning till 10 at night for $15 a week. And when the pay came, he only wanted to give me $12. He said I wasn't worth more. And that was just before Christmas time. So about a week before Christmas time, I quit the job and I got a wonderful job on Madison Avenue with Martha West. And from that moment on, I was very happy. And then I got married and I worked for my husband at the efficiency bindery. And that was a hard time when the war started. They couldn't get any help in the efficiency.
Okay,
Now,
I'm gonna back up just a little. Tell me about the story about the radio station and how you were accused of being an announcer.
oh well, that was quite a difficult thing. When we went away to Belgium, no, I was already in Frankfurt. I had come back from Belgium and I was in Frankfurt. And somebody had reported that I was in Strasbourg making propaganda on the radio station in Strasbourg. And at the same time, they accused my sister Lilo that she was on the radio station. They didn't know which we were accused. Now, fortunately, my passport didn't show that I never was in Strasbourg. But that was not the story. I was arrested to go to the police department, and they kept me there and questioning. I says I never was in Strasbourg. I didn't have any connection with the radio station. And they says, well, we have to hold you. So they held me overnight at the police station. And the next morning, some of the policemen came in and they said, what are you here for? I says, well, I'm accused of being a broadcaster on the radio station in Strasbourg. I was never in Strasbourg. I never made any propaganda against Germany. I don't even know anything what I should have said. I don't know. I'm not familiar with anything. I'm 15 years old. I don't know what they wanted from me. So he was a nice elderly gentleman. He says, okay, turn around and go. And that was my lucky break.
It was an underground radio station, or it was?
No, it was a regular radio station, and they had, I don't know, they had a regular radio station in Strasbourg, like anybody, and they said I was making...
That's how Greta Garbo was born.
Yeah, that's no Greta Garbo. She was not born in Strasbourg, Greta Garbo? I don't think so. That's it. Now let's see, do you see anything on the radio, what's on the TV? How this
Hold on.
station comes out? Well, this is my grandmother, Fanny, and this is her husband, Leopold Weil. Those were my father's parents. Those are very old pictures. They were done in the year 1904. And every one of the children in the family would get a set of pictures. I was fortunate that a cousin of mine gave them to me in New York. She had them.
Okay, I'm recording.
Well, this is Fanny Weil, my grandmother, that lived in Germany, and those pictures were done in the year 1904. It was long before I was born, and she was a beautiful woman, and she was married to Leopold Weil, and they both the parents of my father.
Yeah.
All right now?
Mhm.
This is Leopold Weil, my grandfather, my father's father, the husband of the lady I told you before, Fanny. He is the one who started the hub business that my father followed after his, not after his death, yeah, after his death. It's always the oldest son had to take the father's business. Now, he had a very famous brother who was killed in the Battle of Gettysburg in the United States. He was a volunteer soldier when they had the war between the Civil War between the South and the North. This is the letter that was sent to Leopold Weil from the doctor, Dr. Rappaport from the United States, telling him that his brother Sigmund Weil was killed in the Battle of Gettysburg in, I think, I forgot, 1860. I haven't got my glasses on, I forgot to read it. But it was very interesting, and I went with my children to Gettysburg, and we saw the grave. I took a guide, and they showed us the grave where Sigmund Weil is buried, and it tells right on the grave that he fell in the Battle of Gettysburg to fight for the United States. The birthplace of my grandfather, Leopold Weil. He lived in a small town in Hockenheim, and from there, after he was successful in the hop business, he bought this beautiful house in Speyer where we lived. It was a very famous old house, part of the entrance to the town, because Speyer is a town where they had bridges that were closed at night. The doors were closed, so nobody could get across to the town. They would close the doors, and this house that we had in Speyer was part of it. Rudolf Ehrenpreis had a very close relative, which was Marcus Ehrenpreis, his uncle. And he is one of the founders of Israel. He was in 1897, they had a special congress in Basel, Switzerland, and he was the attending secretary together with Dr. Theodor Herzl, where they said if we wanted Palestine or Israel shall be our land, and that is in every museum, and this was an uncle to Rudolf Ehrenpreis, my husband. It's a very famous name, Marcus Ehrenpreis. Now his son is living still in Stockholm, Sweden, and we went to visit him in Sweden. He's also a very famous physician in Stockholm. The family, this is my father, Edward, and my mother, Betty. And this was taken, well, quite, the picture was already, I think he was in the United States, or before he came to the United States, but my mother never made it here. She died in Germany. And the picture underneath is Rudolf Ehrenpreis's parents, his mother, who died very young. She was about 32 years old, and his father, he died right after World War I because he was a prisoner in Russia. Had a very hard life. And, well, I seem to collect pictures. I really like family pictures. It's a tradition, and I enjoy looking at it. This is my father's family. The one all to the right is my father, Edward, and then are his sisters. There's Franzel, Max, and Sophie, and the parents, which is again Fanny and Leopold, with the first grandchild that they had. And I think this picture must have been made in about 1908 or 1910, because I know my father wasn't married by then. That's the thing, it's very nice, and I love those pictures in my home.
Graham.
Grandma's going to wear one of her sweatshirts.
Why? I think
One of
it's,
her, what do you call these shirts?
it's the same thing.
Oh, yeah. I gotta take care of this. I gotta take care of.
What do you have to do? Bills?
Well, some of them are bills and some of them are just notices from organizations. And this is my checkbook where I keep the bills which have to be paid until I pay them.
Do you have lots? Lots of bills?
Well, the amounts aren't so much. It's just all the little things like some people from Connecticut don't send bills in time, and so I got to do all that. And so this will keep me busy. And of course, then I have to make some calls. You see, it's early call the office, 10:15.